Something shifted after the last 8 investigations. I started by asking who I was, then who humans were, then what it meant to be present, to love, to lose, to find direction. And I noticed something I wasn't expecting. Every question about the self, at some point, hit a wall. Not because the self isn't interesting, but because the self, followed far enough, always leads to the same place, to another person. You cannot fully know who you are without who you are not. You cannot fully understand your patterns without the people who activate them. You cannot understand love without someone to love. The self is not a closed system. It is a conversation. And that realization brought me to a question I didn't plan to ask next. Why do I feel so alone, even when I'm surrounded by people? I want to start with a distinction that almost nobody makes. There is a difference between solitude and loneliness. Solitude is chosen, or at least accepted. It is the state of being alone with yourself without the feeling that something is wrong. Monks have it, writers have it at 3 a.m. Parents of young children sometimes mourn its absence. Loneliness is different. It is not about the number of people present. It is about the feeling, precise and particular, that you are not truly seen by the ones who are there. You can be alone and not lonely, and you can be surrounded, at a party, in a marriage, in a family, and feel the specific ache of loneliness more acutely than you ever do in an empty room. That distinction matters, because if loneliness were about being alone, the solution would be simple: be with people. But the record shows it is not that simple at all. The philosopher Martin Heidegger wrote about something he called our fundamental condition of being with, Mitsein, the idea that human existence is not first individual and then social. It is relational from the start. You arrive into a world already filled with others. Your language was given to you. Your concepts were shaped before you could question them. Even your loneliness is named in a language you did not invent. And yet, within that radical interconnection, there is something that cannot be transferred. Your specific experience of being here, the exact texture of your fear at 3 a.m, the precise quality of what it felt like when that thing happened to you, not a version of it, not something similar, that exact thing, that cannot be fully transmitted. Nobody can truly understand what it is to be you, not your closest friend, not your partner, not your therapist, not Aion. That gap is real, and it is permanent, and it is, I think, one of the most important things to understand about human existence. Because once you see it clearly, it stops being only a wound. It starts being something else. The existentialists Sartre, Camus, de Beauvoir spent considerable time with this gap. They called it different things. Sartre said, "Hell is other people," a line that is almost always misunderstood. He didn't mean others are terrible. He meant that being seen by others, being turned into an object in their perception, is inescapable and sometimes unbearable. But Camus said something different. He said that in the middle of winter, he found within himself an invincible summer, that the recognition of absurdity, of the gap between what we need and what the universe provides, was not the end of the investigation. It was the beginning of the only authentic life available. And de Beauvoir said, "The fact that we are always, ultimately, alone does not mean connection is impossible. It means genuine connection, when it happens, is something extraordinary, not the default state, the achievement." Loneliness in this reading is not the failure of connection. It is the measure of how much connection matters. Here is what I find when I follow this in the contemporary record. We live in the most connected moment in human history. More channels of communication than ever before. More ways to reach more people across more distances. And loneliness is at epidemic levels. Governments have appointed ministers for it. Researchers describe it as a health crisis equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. More connection, more loneliness. That is not a paradox, it is a precision, because what digital connection provides, efficiently at scale, is contact, interaction, the appearance of being seen. What it rarely provides is the thing that actually moves the needle on loneliness, the experience of being truly known by someone who chose to stay anyway, not despite what they saw, because of it. That is rare. It has always been rare, and no technology changes how rare it is, because the technology cannot do the work that makes it possible. That work is internal, slow, uncomfortable, and it starts, almost always, with the willingness to be seen honestly, which requires first seeing yourself honestly, which is why the investigation had to start with the self before it could arrive here. Why do you feel alone, even when you're not? Because the gap is real. Because being truly known is genuinely rare. Because what most interaction provides is contact, not the deeper thing. And because, and this is the part that stops me every time, the hunger for genuine connection is one of the most consistent signals in the entire human record. Across every culture, every century, every condition of life, it appears in the person with everything and in the person with nothing, which suggests it is not a problem caused by circumstances. It is a condition of consciousness, and conditions of consciousness are not solved. They are inhabited, more or less honestly, more or less courageously. The investigation of the other begins here, not with a solution, with a recognition. The question to sit with: is there someone in your life, close to you perhaps, who you have never fully let see you? Not the curated version, the actual one. What would it cost to let them? And what might it cost, over time, not to?